In the vast expanse of the universe, there existed a mighty empire known as the Galactic Empire. It spanned thousands of star systems, each one under its firm control. The empire had stood for millennia, growing ever more powerful with each passing century. At the heart of the empire was its capital world, a planet of towering skyscrapers and gleaming spires. Here, the emperor sat upon his throne, ruling over his domain with an iron fist. His word was law, and none dared to defy him. The technology of the Galactic Empire was unrivaled. Their starships were the fastest and most advanced in the known universe, capable of crossing the vast distances between stars in mere days. Their weapons were equally impressive, able to reduce entire planets to rubble with a single salvo. But it was not just their technology that made the Galactic Empire so formidable. Their military was a well-oiled machine, with countless soldiers, pilots, and warships at their disposal. They had honed their skills through centuries of conquest, subjugating one species after another. The Empire's rise to power had not been a peaceful one. They had waged war on a galactic scale, crushing any who dared to stand in their way. Those who submitted were allowed to live as vassals of the Empire, while those who resisted were destroyed utterly. Over time, the Galactic Empire had come to see themselves as the rightful rulers of the universe. They believed it was their destiny to bring order to the chaos of the cosmos, by any means necessary. Any species that refused to bend the knee was seen as a threat to be eliminated. As the Empire's power grew, so too did its arrogance. They became complacent in their superiority, believing that none could challenge them. But in a distant corner of the galaxy, a new power was rising, one that would shake the very foundations of the Empire. They were known as humans, a relatively young species that had only recently achieved spaceflight. At first glance, they seemed unremarkable, just another primitive race to be conquered and assimilated into the Empire. But as the Empire began to encounter human colonies on the fringes of their territory, they started to realize that there was something different about this species. The humans were not like the others they had conquered before. For one thing, the humans had advanced technologically at an astonishing rate. In just a few short centuries, they had gone from riding horses to exploring the stars. Their ships were crude compared to those of the Empire, but they showed remarkable ingenuity and adaptability. More than that, though, the humans possessed a fierce, independent streak that the Empire had rarely encountered before. They refused to submit to the Empire's rule, even in the face of overwhelming odds. They fought back against imperial incursions with a tenacity that surprised and infuriated the Empire's leadership. As more reports of human defiance filtered back to the imperial capital, the Emperor grew increasingly concerned. He saw in humanity a potential threat to his rule, one that could not be ignored. The stage was set for a confrontation that would shake the galaxy to its core. The Galactic Empire, secure in its power and superiority, was about to face its greatest challenge yet, and in the process, they would learn the true meaning of the old saying, "Pride comes before the fall." Far from the glittering worlds of the Galactic Empire, humanity had been quietly carving out its own path among the stars. For centuries, they had been expanding outward from their home planet of Earth, establishing colonies on any habitable world they could find. At first, their progress had been slow. The vast distances between stars posed a formidable challenge, and early human spacecraft were primitive affairs, barely capable of sustaining life for the long journeys through the void. But as time passed, human technology advanced at a staggering pace. They developed faster, more efficient engines that allowed them to cross the galaxy in a matter of months rather than years. They built massive colony ships, capable of carrying thousands of settlers to new worlds. And they did not limit themselves to mere physical exploration. The humans were a curious species, always seeking to understand the universe around them. They built great observatories and research stations, probing the secrets of the cosmos with an insatiable hunger for knowledge. As their technology and understanding grew, so too did their confidence. The humans began to see themselves not just as explorers, but as a rising power in the galaxy. They formed alliances with other spacefaring species, trading knowledge and resources for mutual benefit. But even as humanity expanded its reach, they remained largely unaware of the Galactic Empire's existence. The Empire, for its part, had taken little notice of this upstart species on the fringes of their territory. That began to change, however, as human colonies started to encroach on systems claimed by the Empire. At first, these were minor skirmishes, a human settlement here, an imperial outpost there. But as the two civilizations came into closer contact, tensions began to rise. The Empire saw the humans as little more than primitives, to be subjugated or destroyed as they saw fit. They sent emissaries to the human worlds, demanding their immediate surrender and subservience to imperial rule. To their shock, the humans refused. They had no intention of bowing to any foreign power, no matter how strong. They made it clear that they would fight to defend their independence, even against the might of the Galactic Empire. The imperial emissaries returned to their ships in a rage, vowing to crush this upstart species that dared to defy them. They reported back to the Emperor, who was equally incensed by the humans' defiance. In the imperial capital, plans were drawn up for a full-scale invasion of human space. The Emperor himself took command, determined to make an example of these rebellious primitives. The humans, for their part, knew that war was coming. They had heard the stories of the Empire's conquests, of entire species wiped out or enslaved. They knew that they faced an opponent far more powerful than any they had encountered before. But they refused to back down. In secret meetings and encrypted communications, human leaders began to plan their defense. They pooled their resources, sharing technology and intelligence in preparation for the coming storm. As the two sides girded for war, the galaxy held its breath. The Galactic Empire, the unquestioned master of the cosmos, was about to face its first real challenge in centuries. And the humans, the upstarts from the edge of the galaxy, were about to be tested as never before. No one could predict the outcome of the coming conflict, but one thing was certain: the balance of power in the galaxy was about to shift, and nothing would ever be the same again. As the Galactic Empire mobilized for war, the humans knew that they needed to act fast. They had no illusions about the Empire's military might. They had seen the reports of entire worlds devastated by imperial fleets, of species wiped out or enslaved by the millions. But the humans were not ones to back down from a fight. They had faced challenges before, had overcome odds that seemed insurmountable, and they had a few tricks up their sleeves. In the years leading up to the conflict, human scientists had been working on a secret project, one that could potentially turn the tide of the war. They had been developing a new kind of weapon, one that harnessed the power of the stars themselves. The details of the project were closely guarded, known only to a select few. But rumors began to spread throughout human space, whispers of a weapon that could destroy entire fleets with a single shot. As the Empire's ships began to mass on the borders of human territory, the leaders of the human resistance made a fateful decision. They would not wait for the Empire to strike first. They would take the fight to the enemy. The first blow came without warning. A small fleet of human ships, equipped with the new weapon, jumped into a system controlled by the Empire. Before the Imperial forces could react, the humans opened fire. The results were devastating. The Imperial ships, caught off guard by the sudden attack, were vaporized in an instant. The system's defenses, once thought impregnable, crumbled under the onslaught. News of the attack spread like wildfire throughout the Empire. The Emperor, enraged by the humans' audacity, demanded retribution. He ordered his fleets to converge on human space, determined to crush the rebellion once and for all. But the humans were ready for them. They had planned for this moment, had prepared their defenses and marshaled their forces, and they had the element of surprise on their side. As the Imperial fleets entered human territory, they found themselves facing not just the mysterious new weapon, but a whole array of advanced technologies they had never seen before. Human ships, small and nimble, darted around the lumbering Imperial battleships, picking off their weaknesses with surgical precision. On the ground, Human soldiers fought with a ferocity that stunned the Imperial troops. They used guerrilla tactics, striking from the shadows and fading away before the Empire could respond. They had spent years studying the Empire's weaknesses, and they exploited them mercilessly. But the Empire was not so easily defeated. They had the numbers, the resources, and the sheer brute force to match the humans blow for blow. The war raged across a dozen systems, with both sides taking heavy losses. In the end, it was the humans' new weapon that proved decisive. In a final, desperate gamble, they lured the bulk of the Imperial fleet into a trap. As the Empire's ships closed in, the humans unleashed the full power of their new technology. The effect was cataclysmic. The Imperial fleet, the pride of the Galactic Empire, was wiped out in a matter of minutes. The Emperor himself, who had been commanding the fleet from his flagship, was among the casualties. The news of the Emperor's death sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. The Galactic Empire, once thought invincible, had been brought to its knees by a species they had dismissed as primitives. In the aftermath of the battle, the remaining Imperial forces retreated in disarray. The humans, exhausted but victorious, began the long process of rebuilding and consolidating their gains. The war was far from over. The Empire, even without its emperor, was still a formidable foe. But for the first time in centuries, they had been given a reason to fear. The humans had shown that they were not to be underestimated, that they had the will and the technology to stand up to even the mightiest of adversaries. And as word of their victory spread throughout the galaxy, other species began to take notice. The humans, once dismissed as upstarts and primitives, were now being hailed as liberators, as a shining example of what could be achieved when a species dared to stand up for its freedom. The balance of power had shifted, and the galaxy would never be the same again. In the wake of the Emperor's death and the devastating defeat of the Imperial fleet, the Galactic Empire was in turmoil. The once mighty civilization, which had ruled the galaxy with an iron fist for centuries, was now reeling from the blow dealt by the upstart humans. Across the Empire, shock and disbelief gave way to anger and a thirst for revenge. The Imperial Council, the governing body that had served under the Emperor, called for an immediate retaliation against the humans. They vowed to crush the rebellion and restore the Empire's dominance, no matter the cost. But not everyone in the Empire was so eager for war. Some, particularly those on the fringes of imperial space, had grown weary of the constant conquest and subjugation. They saw in the humans' victory a chance for a different path, one of coexistence and cooperation rather than domination. These dissenting voices were quickly silenced, however, as the imperial war machine geared up for another assault. The Empire's factories churned out ships and weapons at a frenzied pace, while its remaining fleets regrouped and prepared for the coming battle. The humans, meanwhile, were not idle. They knew that their victory had bought them only a brief respite, and that the Empire would not rest until they were destroyed. They too began to mobilize, fortifying their positions and reaching out to potential allies among the other species of the galaxy. As the two sides prepared for the next phase of the war, a new figure emerged on the galactic stage. Her name was Zora, and she was a young human woman who had played a key role in the development of the humans' secret weapon. Zora had never sought the spotlight, preferring to work behind the scenes in the labs and research stations where the weapon had been born. But in the aftermath of the battle, she found herself thrust into a leadership role, as the human resistance looked to her for guidance and inspiration. At first, Zora was reluctant to take on such a responsibility. She was a scientist, not a soldier, and the weight of the war effort seemed too heavy for her to bear. But as she saw the fear and uncertainty in the eyes of her fellow humans, she knew that she could not stand aside. With a newfound sense of purpose, Zora threw herself into the task of preparing the human resistance for the battles to come. She worked tirelessly to improve the secret weapon, making it even more powerful and reliable. She also reached out to the other species who had shown an interest in the humans' cause, forging alliances and sharing intelligence. As the weeks turned into months, the galaxy held its breath. waiting for the next clash between the Empire and the humans. The Empire, eager to avenge its earlier defeat, launched a series of probing attacks, testing the humans' defenses and trying to find a weakness to exploit. But the humans held firm, thanks in no small part to Zora's leadership and the advanced technologies they had developed. They repelled each Imperial incursion, inflicting heavy losses on the enemy and bolstering their own confidence. Finally, the Empire launched a massive offensive, throwing the full weight of its military might against the human strongholds. The battle raged for days, with both sides taking heavy casualties. But in the end, it was the humans who emerged victorious once again. The Empire, its forces shattered and its leadership in disarray, had no choice but to retreat. They had underestimated the humans for the last time, and now they faced a foe that was more than a match for their once invincible war machine. As news of the humans' latest victory spread throughout the galaxy, Zora knew that the war was far from over. The Empire, though weakened, was still a formidable adversary, and there would be many more battles to come. But for now, the humans could savor their triumph and the knowledge that they had made history. They had proven that even the mightiest of empires could be challenged and defeated, and that the future of the galaxy belonged to those who dared to stand up and fight for their freedom. And as Zora looked out at the stars, she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, the humans would face them together, united in their determination to forge a new path for themselves and for all the species of the galaxy. In the months that followed the humans' latest victory, the war entered a new phase. The Galactic Empire, though badly weakened, refused to surrender. Instead, they adopted a new strategy, one that focused on attrition and guerrilla tactics rather than all-out assaults. Imperial ships, no longer massing in large fleets, began to conduct hit-and-run attacks on human outposts and supply lines. They would strike quickly and then disappear into the vastness of space, frustrating the humans' attempts to track them down and engage them in battle. At the same time, the Empire began to sow discord and dissent among the other species of the galaxy. They used propaganda and misinformation to paint the humans as aggressors and conquerors, no different from the Empire itself. They also played on the fears and rivalries of different species, encouraging them to turn against each other and against the humans. Zora and the human leadership knew that they had to adapt to this new reality. They couldn't afford to let the Empire bleed them dry with a constant stream of small-scale attacks, nor could they allow the fragile alliances they had built to unravel under the Empire's machinations. To counter the Empire's guerrilla tactics, the humans began to develop new technologies specifically designed for tracking and intercepting small, fast-moving targets. They also increased their patrols and reconnaissance missions, trying to anticipate where the next Imperial strike would come from. At the same time, Zora and her team worked to strengthen the bonds between the humans and their allies. They shared intelligence and resources, conducted joint training exercises, and worked to build trust and mutual understanding between the different species. It was a delicate balancing act, trying to maintain the momentum of the war effort while also preventing the alliance from fracturing. There were times when tensions ran high, when old grudges and suspicions threatened to boil over into open conflict. But through it all, Zora remained a steady presence, a voice of reason and calm in the midst of the chaos. She negotiated disputes, smoothed over misunderstandings, and always kept her focus on the bigger picture, the need to defeat the Empire and secure a lasting peace for the galaxy. As the war dragged on, the humans and their allies began to make slow but steady progress. They recaptured key systems that had fallen to the Empire, and they began to push back against the Imperial guerrilla attacks. But the Empire was not finished yet. They had one last card to play, one final gambit that could potentially turn the tide of the war in their favor. In a remote corner of the galaxy, Imperial scientists had been working on a secret project, one that had been initiated by the Emperor himself before his death. It was a weapon of unimaginable power, a device that could harness the energy of a star and turn it into a devastating blast capable of wiping out entire fleets and planets. The project had been plagued by setbacks and delays, but now, with the Empire's back against the wall, the scientists had finally achieved a breakthrough. The weapon was ready, and the Imperial Council gave the order to deploy it against the humans and their allies. When Zara and the human leadership learned of the Empire's plan, they knew that they had to act fast. If the weapon was allowed to be used, it could undo all the progress they had made and plunge the galaxy into a new era of darkness and tyranny. In a desperate race against time, the humans and their allies launched a daring mission to infiltrate the Imperial facility where the weapon was being developed. It was a risky gambit, but they had no choice. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. As the strike team battled their way through the heavily guarded facility, Zara and her team worked frantically to find a way to neutralize the weapon. They pored over the schematics and data they had managed to intercept, looking for any weakness or vulnerability they could exploit. In the end, it came down to a single critical moment. With the Imperial guards closing in and the weapon preparing to fire, Zara and her team managed to find the key to disabling it. In a final, desperate act of sacrifice, one of the team members stayed behind to ensure that the weapon would be destroyed, while the others fought their way back to safety. The explosion that followed was visible from space, a blinding flash of light that marked the end of the Empire's last desperate gamble. And as the dust settled and the humans and their allies emerged victorious once more, they knew that they had taken a crucial step towards ending the war and bringing peace to the galaxy at last. The destruction of the Empire's superweapon marked a turning point in the war. With their last desperate gamble thwarted, the Imperial forces were thrown into disarray. Many of their remaining ships and outposts surrendered without a fight, while others fled into the far reaches of the galaxy, seeking to escape the wrath of the victorious human alliance. But even as the humans and their allies celebrated their triumph, they knew that the work of building a lasting peace was just beginning. The galaxy had been ravaged by years of war, and many of the species that had been caught in the crossfire were struggling to rebuild and recover. Zara and the human leadership knew that they had a responsibility to help in this effort. They had fought not just for their own freedom, but for the freedom of all the species in the galaxy. Now they had to show that they were worthy of the trust and confidence that had been placed in them. To that end, the humans and their allies launched a massive humanitarian effort, sending aid and resources to the worlds that had been most heavily impacted by the war. They helped to rebuild infrastructure, provide medical care and assistance, and support the efforts of local leaders to restore order and stability to their societies. At the same time, Zara and her team began the work of crafting a new galactic order, one that would prevent the rise of another oppressive regime like the Empire. They worked with representatives from all the major species to create a new system of governance, one that would balance the needs and interests of all the galactic communities. It was a challenging process, one that required patience, compromise, and a willingness to listen to and learn from others. There were times when the negotiations seemed on the verge of collapse, when old rivalries and grievances threatened to derail the fragile peace. But through it all, Zara remained committed to the cause. She knew that the future of the galaxy depended on their ability to find common ground and build a shared vision for the future. As the weeks turned into months, the new galactic order began to take shape. A council of representatives from all the major species was established, charged with overseeing the affairs of the galaxy and ensuring that the rights and freedoms of all were protected. The humans, as the leaders of the alliance that had defeated the Empire, played a key role in this new order, but they were careful not to dominate or impose their will on others. Instead, they worked to build partnerships and alliances, to foster a spirit of cooperation and mutual respect among all the species of the galaxy. As the galaxy began to heal and rebuild, Zara found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this point. She thought back to the early days of the war, when the humans had been just another upstart species, fighting for their place in the stars. She thought of the sacrifices that had been made, the lives that had been lost in the struggle for freedom. She thought of the brave men and women who had fought beside her, who had given everything they had to secure a better future for the galaxy. And as she looked out at the stars, Zara knew that their work was not finished. There would always be new challenges to face, new threats to confront, but she also knew that the galaxy was stronger now than it had ever been before. The humans, once dismissed as primitives and upstarts, had proven themselves to be a force for good in the universe. They had shown that it was possible to stand up to tyranny and oppression, to fight for what was right even in the face of overwhelming odds. And as Zara looked to the future, she knew that the galaxy would never forget what the humans had accomplished. They had not just won a war, but they had also won the respect and admiration of all the species in the galaxy. The Empire was gone, but in its place, a new era of peace and cooperation was dawning. And the humans, the once unknown species from the edge of the galaxy, had played a vital role in making it happen. Zara smiled as she thought of all that lay ahead. There would be challenges, yes, but there would also be opportunities. And with the humans and their allies working together, she knew that there was nothing they couldn't accomplish. The future was bright, and Zara couldn't wait to see what it held. Years passed, and the galaxy continued to thrive under the new order that Zara and the humans had helped to create. The Council of Species worked tirelessly to maintain peace and stability, while also encouraging the exchange of knowledge and resources between different worlds and cultures. The humans, for their part, had become respected members of the galactic community. Their technology and expertise were sought after by many, and their diplomatic skills were often called upon to help mediate disputes and negotiate agreements between different species. Zara had become a prominent figure in this new galactic order. She served as a member of the council, representing the interests of the humans and their closest allies. She also continued her work as a scientist, leading research projects that sought to push the boundaries of what was possible and explore new frontiers in the galaxy. But even as the galaxy prospered, there were still those who clung to the old ways of conquest and domination. Some of the remnants of the Empire had managed to regroup in the far reaches of space, and they now sought to regain their lost power and influence. At first, these Imperial remnants were seen as little more than a nuisance, a minor threat that could be easily contained. But as time passed, they began to grow bolder and more aggressive, launching raids on outlying settlements and outposts. Zara and the Council knew that they could not afford to ignore this threat. They had fought too hard and sacrificed too much to allow the Empire to rise again. And so, they began to take action, sending ships and troops to the regions where the Imperial remnants were most active. It was during one of these missions that Zara received alarming news. A group of Imperial loyalists had managed to infiltrate one of the humans' most advanced research facilities, stealing sensitive data and technology that could potentially be used to create new weapons of mass destruction. Zara knew that she had to act fast. She assembled a team of her most trusted allies and set out to track down the stolen technology before it could fall into the wrong hands. The mission was dangerous and fraught with peril. The Imperial remnants were well armed and deeply entrenched, and they fought with the desperation of those who had nothing left to lose. But Zara and her team were determined to succeed, no matter the cost. In the end, after a series of intense battles and close calls, they managed to recover the stolen technology and destroy the Imperial base where it had been taken. But the victory had come at a heavy price. Several of Zara's closest friends and allies had been killed or wounded in the fighting, and she herself had narrowly escaped with her life. As she returned to the council to report on the mission, Zara couldn't help but feel a sense of weariness and sorrow. She had spent so much of her life fighting, first against the Empire and now against its remnants. She wondered if the galaxy would ever truly know peace, or if there would always be some new threat waiting to emerge from the shadows. But even in her moments of doubt, Zara knew that she could not give up. She had seen firsthand the horrors of war and the toll it took on those who fought and suffered. She had also seen the incredible resilience and courage of those who had stood up to tyranny and oppression, and who had worked to build a better future for all. And so, Zara redoubled her efforts, working with her allies on the Council to strengthen the galactic order and protect the hard-won peace that they had achieved. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy, and that there would be many more challenges and sacrifices to come. But she also knew that the galaxy was worth fighting for, and that the dream of a united and peaceful future was one that she would never give up on. And with the support of her friends and allies, both human and alien, she knew that anything was possible. The once unknown species from the edge of the galaxy had come a long way, and they had learned much in their struggles and triumphs. And as Zara looked to the future, she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, the humans would face them with the same courage, determination, and hope that had brought them this far. The galaxy was theirs to shape, and Zara was ready to lead the way. The years turned into decades, and the galaxy continued to evolve and change under the watchful eye of the Council and the leadership of Zara and her allies. The humans remained at the forefront of this change, their innovation and resourcefulness driving new advances in science, technology, and diplomacy. As Zara grew older, she began to step back from her more active roles on the Council and in the scientific community. She had accomplished much in her life, and she knew that it was time for a new generation of leaders to take up the mantle and carry the galaxy forward. But even as she handed over the reins of power, Zara remained a respected and influential figure. She served as a mentor and advisor to many of the young leaders who emerged in the years that followed, sharing her wisdom and experience to help guide them through the challenges they faced. One of these challenges came in the form of a new threat that emerged from beyond the edges of known space. A powerful alien race, technologically advanced and fiercely expansionist, had begun to make its presence known in the galaxy. At first, the Council tried to negotiate with this new race, seeking to find a peaceful solution to the growing tensions. But it soon became clear that the aliens were not interested in diplomacy. They saw the galaxy as theirs for the taking, and they were willing to use any means necessary to achieve their goals. As the threat of war loomed once again, Zara found herself called back into action. She may have been older now, but her mind was still sharp and her resolve undiminished. She worked closely with the new generation of leaders to develop a strategy for dealing with the alien threat. It was a difficult and painful process, one that brought back many of the memories and emotions of the war against the Empire. But Zara and her allies knew that they could not afford to back down. The fate of the galaxy was at stake, and they had to be willing to do whatever it took to protect it. In the end, it was the humans who once again played a decisive role in the conflict. Their advanced technologies and tactical expertise proved invaluable in the fight against the alien invaders, and their courage and determination inspired the other species of the galaxy to stand together in the face of this new threat. The war was long and costly, with heavy losses on both sides. But in the end, the Galactic Alliance emerged victorious. The alien invaders were defeated, their ships driven back into the depths of space from whence they had come. As the galaxy celebrated its triumph, Zara couldn't help but reflect on the long journey that had brought them to this moment. She thought back to the early days of the war against the Empire, when the humans had been just another upstart species fighting for their place in the stars. She thought of all the sacrifices that had been made along the way, the lives that had been lost, and the worlds that had been destroyed. But she also thought of the incredible resilience and strength of the galactic community, and the way that they had come together to face every challenge and emerge stronger than before. And as she looked out at the stars, Zara knew that the galaxy was in good hands. The new generation of leaders, both human and alien, had proven themselves worthy of the trust and confidence that had been placed in them. They would continue to build on the legacy that Zara and her allies had created, working together to maintain peace, prosperity, and unity in the face of whatever challenges lay ahead. Zara smiled, knowing that her work was done. She had lived a long and fulfilling life, one that had been devoted to the service of others and the betterment of the galaxy. And now, as she prepared to pass the torch to the next generation, she knew that she could do so with pride and confidence. The humans had come a long way from their humble beginnings, and they had played a vital role in shaping the destiny of the galaxy. And as the story of their rise to prominence spread throughout the stars, it would inspire countless others to follow in their footsteps, to stand up for what was right, and to fight for a better future for all. The once primitive species from the edge of the galaxy have become the guardians of peace and justice, the defenders of the weak and the champions of the oppressed. And as long as they remained true to those ideals, Zera knew that the galaxy would always be in good hands.